Welcome everyone to Not Keeping It Real. I'm David Crane along with Tony Galvan. And today we'll be talking about a multitude of things, mostly about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. That just ended, as well as Mortal Kombat. And then we'll maybe talk a few minutes about the Impact pay-per-view because it was actually okay. So they should be really impressed with themselves. They had a decent pay-per-view. So we'll get into that a little bit too.
First,
how are you doing this week, Tony?
I'm doing good.
So I should probably preface this by saying that after this episode, we're both going to take a little time off from doing the show, basically because we're both having to do a bunch of finals and crap in school, and it's just
pray for us.
Yeah, exactly. I'm of course a procrastinator, so it's all I like to say I have senioritis because I'm going to graduate, but that's why I'm a total flake. But it is what it is. So we will not be back until May 24th, and
when's that?
I don't foresee a lot happening between now and May 24th, honestly.
Exactly.
But
it's convenient, yeah.
Yeah, it's very convenient on both ends. So we'll have more to talk about more on the 24th. Hopefully, giving the show a few weeks off, and then also it just makes our lives easier. But so Falcon and Winter Soldier. Let's start talking about that. Tony, how'd you feel about this show? Because I'm already sold when they say it's like Marvel cinema.
Well, we discussed because we reviewed the first episode, and I was very much on board.
Yes.
But as I feared, there was a bit of a drop off. Now, mind you, it recovered at the end, but there were a couple episodes where I'm just like, this is borderline ABC Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. level stuff.
Oh, that's harsh. That is harsh, sir, because I call foul on that place, sir, because I had to sit through a season, like everybody else, of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. waiting for something to happen. And then something finally happened, not on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but made season 2 really interesting. But I just stopped watching after that.
It's like they had a budget for a full-length movie, and they stretched it out for an entire season of a show. Now, mind you, it was only 8 episodes, but still, that's 8 hours?
6 episodes, actually.
6 episodes? Oh, so I guess it came out to the a length of a movie. Because the episodes weren't a full hour. They were maybe 45 minutes.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it was probably a 4-hour movie, really.
Yeah. Really strong beginning and a really strong end, and then just an okay middle. It was
all story development, character development, seeing where things are gonna go. From what the show from what I saw on the show, they're definitely gonna do a season 2.
From what I heard, they're making a movie, so I don't know. I could be wrong. You follow the stuff more than I do, so if they're doing a season 2. I wouldn't be surprised because they kind of left the door open for a bunch of solo songs as Cap stuff.
Yeah, well, for sure. I mean, basically, I want to see more of it after watching it. And I mean, it gives you that feeling of that. But yeah, right now, I believe the rumor is to do another season. But nothing's been announced, so it certainly could be a movie.
Oh.
And it's certainly a movie everybody would go see. So, so yeah, they can do whatever they want. Basically, we'll be there, along with the rest of the world, But yeah, do you know some of these characters? Because they brought up a lot of a couple of new characters in this that I'm not familiar with because I always read the X-Men and Spider-Man comics.
You and everybody else in the 90s.
Yeah, exactly. That's when I read most of my comics. So I was far, far away from Avengers and Captain America. I was just ew, no, don't.
No, in fact, so few people were reading anything that wasn't Spider-Man and X-Men that they killed them off and they rebooted them and
Heroes Reborn.
Yeah, Heroes Reborn. And then that fell through, and then they just brought him back to the Marvel 616. But those titles were so unsuccessful, they just decided to reboot, and they brought a bunch of the Image guys back. They're like, look, these titles aren't selling. Do whatever you want with them, but we're just doing them on a separate universe because everyone's buying X-Men, Spider-Man, and we kind of want to just focus on that right now.
Well, the Image guys, if I'm not mistaken, that was Heroes Reborn, right? Like that's when
Yeah.
I don't know for sure because I wasn't reading, but I just remember I just can always when I think of Heroes Reborn and when the Image guys took over and everything, like I always just remember how big Captain America's breasts were. Rob Liefeld, God bless him. I think he's like an Orange County native. He still lives. I think he lives in like Buena Park, but.
That famous cat photo, yeah. And then
he's got issues with drawing.
And then you also had that funny line in the Deadpool movie where he can't draw feet either. They brought it up in the movie.
I did not catch that. So, so he's talking about Rob Liefeld. Yes. Who, by the way,
it was in the context, and I'm paraphrasing, where like someone's like, "Ooh, where'd you get that idea?" He's like, "From someone who couldn't draw feet."
Now, maybe you know this or not. I know we're going way off track, but I want to keep going down that path. I know, New Mutants 98, Deadpool first appears. Rob Liefeld drew him, and he looks a certain way. He wasn't I remember at the time, like, he did not catch fire, It wasn't until, like, he broke down that, like, fourth wall. And
even though he was first introduced in New Mutants, I'm under the impression that he was written differently down the road, and basically what he is now was created further down the line.
So in that context, because he wasn't doing, he looked kind of cool, but really, like, it was just like a lot of characters looked cool back then. So really, he didn't mean much. He wasn't a big deal. But when they started writing him differently, then he was a big deal. And I kind of wondered, I'm sure I could look it up, but you may know who started writing him differently. Because it wasn't wrong.
I'm familiar with. I'm not a super giant fan of Deadpool's comics, so I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
I read a lot of those early comics too, because people I really trusted Wizard, and they're like, you should read Deadpool comics, and I'm like, so I got a lot of the early stuff, but I don't know if it's worth anything. But I just was like, oh, this is kind of funny. This is like really weird. This is cool.
Oh, going back to what we were talking about earlier, you were talking about other characters you weren't familiar with.
Yes, so like I've seen her in Veep and Seinfeld, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who I think is, wow, that's a huge get for the MCU. Like, if they can get more out of her than a couple of scenes like they did in this show, they kind of just introduced her as Valentina. We'll just call her Val. She's got a long name. But don't call her Val. I want to call her Val. So she, having her on the show, if it's going to be in a new season or in a new movie, like, that's really cool. It's not like huge box office, but for us to actually enjoy cinema, like, it's like, wow, this is great. This person can do anything. So, what do you know about this character, about Val?
Yeah, that's what I was about to ask you, because I wasn't even familiar with. I didn't know who she was supposed to be. That's what my question was. I originally thought she was Abigail Brand of Sword, because she kind of. Like, I wasn't sure if she was supposed to be evil or not. I was like, She
definitely comes off like she's supposed to be evil.
Well, like, at first, when they first introduced her when she was at the hearing, but then at the end, when he puts on the U.S. Agent costume, it's like it seemed kind of morally ambiguous. So I'm like, I wonder if that's supposed to be Abigail Brand of Sword. But I know they're doing different things with Sword in the MCU. But I'm just saying that's my familiarity. But no, I'm very briefly trying to read this right now.
Yeah, so I will say I read up a little bit about her. I just thought you would know more because you read more comics. But
no, what you often have with the MCU is, and even just movies and TVs in general, they don't really like being held to the continuity. So sometimes they really will get these obscure characters and blow them up.
Yeah.
Because they can. They like, they
just did that in WandaVision.
Yeah, they don't want to be pigeonholed, so they'll get these obscure characters that no one's really heard of, and then just elaborate and make up this new continuity about them. So it's like, okay, I see what you're doing, but at the same time, it's like you could be using better established characters, but they want to do what they want to do. So
for sure, basically, she when I've read, I just like glanced at stuff. She's extensively worked with S.H.I.E.L.D. and I guess more recently, in her early storyline, I don't know how recent it is year-wise, she turned on S.H.I.E.L.D. to join Hydra and do some stuff there, but she was really never working for Hydra. She actually double-crossed Hydra, and now she's been good all along. So And again, like with Agnes, you know, in WandaVision, like her character was always good, and then she's kind of basically, she's bad. You know, she's like a bad character.
And
in WandaVision. So basically, it doesn't matter where Val has gone before in the comics so much. Because like they could just make her go anyway, and I think the way they portrayed her was like they could just go either direction with her, you know, like whatever they feel like. They're gonna keep guessing on her, you know, motivations. So
yeah, I'm saying another example of them, you know, having a lesser known character is who is Peggy Carter's niece? I always forget her names.
Oh, I mean, she's a power broker, but
what's her name?
She's something Carter.
I want to say Susan
Carter now.
Right.
I'm just looking it up right now because I can't believe I can't remember either.
Sharon Carter. I knew it was something with
Sharon Carter. There we go.
Okay, Sharon Carter. That's another character with. If you know the history of Cap, she's really important. She's always been sort of the love interest, sort of the liaison between Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's like, okay, throughout the history of her character, there's been nothing to you know, to glom that, oh, she's kind of evil or she's in Madripoor. And they've never done anything with that. She's always been squeaky clean, agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., love interest of Captain America.
Right.
So, but, you know, it's the MCU, so they'll get lesser known characters and they don't like being shackled to continuity. So they'll just elaborate and make all this new continuity or these new character choices, which, you know, I'm not saying it's bad or good one way or another. I'm just saying it's different, so I'm not that familiar with.
And that's kind of good, too, because then, like, you know, people who are really familiar with the comics, like, they won't necessarily see where things are going. So that makes it still very... I mean, I know I say that, but people out there that, like, really are into the comics, they're going to be like, well, that's not how it is in the comics, and they'll get all pissed off. But there's a lot of people that are reasonable that are really into the comics, and they'll be like, wow, I don't know where this is going to go. And that makes it more entertaining for me. Kind of like glass half full kind of scenario there. So, but yeah, I mean, it's this show. We're not going to do it justice. Like, obviously, in like a 40-minute pod where like we're also going to talk about Mortal Kombat and some other things too. But it was a lot of great action. Obviously, it had some good philosophical stuff going on. Yeah. In the end, when everything kind of just worked out, like, well, I was kind of like, that's not the way it works in the real world. And maybe it almost like, if I was going to be critical, it'd be like, it almost like doesn't do like appropriate justice to the struggle that, like, you know, people raised have had to deal with and still deal with on a systematic and institutionalized level. Like that basically, like, it just like, you know, everything's going to be fine. Eventually we'll have our day and all this. But then I was thinking, like, wait a minute, man. Like, you know what? Captain America is all about the optimism about America. That things can change, perspectives can change, you know, and we can do better, you know, as Falcon said, or now the new Captain America. And so I was like, okay, well, you know, you feel really good about inspired towards the end, and that's fine. That's great. You know, that works, you know.
No, and I kind of like that approach. In the comic books, they really took it to the nth degree, to where, you know, he was really, you know, left wing. And you know what? That's fine. Steve Rogers' Captain America has always been sort of an apolitical character. And you're going to do something new. I'm fine with it. It's an interesting idea. It's an interesting take. You can have both perspectives. It's fine if you have some characters or a certain prerogative politically. It's fine. It's not the end of the world. We don't have to start a bonfire for comic books if, you know, they espouse some, you know, left-wing ideology. It's like, okay, you know, we're a big country of all kinds of people. You know, some people are that persuasive. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I thought it really did a lot to, like, kind of connect, you know, people, like, basically kind of like the old tradition of, like, America, it'll always work out, you know, like, eventually we learn and we're cool and, like, we do our best, and eventually, you know, there's bad stuff, but eventually it'll all work out. That's, like, the constant thing, which isn't very left. It's more, like, centrist or even kind of...
Well, I'm just saying that's
centrist. Really, at this point in our time in history, I guess it's very centrist, but it's very traditional, which should be conservative, but now new conservatives aren't very traditional, so it's whatever. But the other side of it is just like, okay, well, we're going to recognize these social issues and stuff. And so, like, and it makes the show, again, like, I could show this to a friend and they don't have to be, like, all dialed in on the Marvel and superheroes and everything. And then it can make them think and be like, wow, there's something to this, you know, like, there's a bit more to this. I don't know if you're familiar with Watchmen, the show. But, like, that was very, you know, it was a brilliant show. And they do get Kindred Race a lot more in that experience. This kind of like, you know, it was a part of this show, but it wasn't like the overlying thing. So it had things to say, but it didn't dominate the conversation of what these characters are. So I thought it was just like a very, I thought it was a good idea. It was very like Disney Plus Marvel version of like tackling these very difficult issues to tackle. So, you know, like something for the whole family to watch and think about. And you know what? Like the real controversy is that there was no Omega Red in this show the entire season. There was big plans for Omega Red, supposedly linked online, and I didn't see Omega Red. I made money off of selling Omega Red, like X-Men number 5, I think, or 4, whatever. CGC 9.8, I made money during this season, so that's good. But no more Omega Red, so no mutants yet in MCU. So.
Hopefully, this puts a lot of the rumor mills to bed. We both know it will, but it's one of those things to where I'm like, until it happens, nothing's official, and just because everything's a rumor doesn't mean it ever see the light of day.
Yeah.
That's the one thing, and that's that I really take the task. I'm really sick of these rumor mills. They have no basis for sprouting these rumors, and then they fall flat in their face, and there's no accountability, and they just go on with the next rumor.
Well, I have a rumor for you. So, you just call my hotline. It's 1-900-99-9900. So it's $1.99 a minute. There is a no. So, God, now I'm sounding like it. The guy who played Dr. Octopus in Spider-Man 2, he recently came out that he's in the new Spider-Man multiverse movie or whatever, potential multiverse movie, right? Where everybody's been like Andrew Garfield's in it, Tobey Maguire's in it, and everything, and a lot of other people are in it, you know, like allegedly, like all these people allegedly. But you know, fuck. Do you know his name? His actual actor name? Dr. Octopus came out on the.
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yes, Dr. Octopus came out on the internet, and he was like, "I'm actually in the movie." So I give no shits, basically. So that to me tipped it all off. So now I get to be like Andrew Garfield, Tobey Maguire. You know,
confirmed.
It's confirmed in my mind. It's done. It's already been done. But they are pretty good about keeping secrets about these things. So we'll see how it goes. But any folks, you should watch this show. You know, that's pretty much you should watch this show.
For some reason why you're listening to us, yes, by all means, watch the show.
Yes,
it's really good. It's not gonna blow your mind, but it's a real. If you want to watch a show, we're all in quarantine. You want to watch something, I guarantee you'll have a good time.
Every episode will keep your interest. It'll escalate.
If you thought WandaVision was good, you'll think this is great.
Yeah. I think they're both great. I like WandaVision more than you did, but it's all good. You know, it had way less action in WandaVision, so and it had less contemporary things to say. You know, so that's also a thing. I just really thought they're both great shows. Anyway, let's get over here and talk about Mortal Kombat. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah. So. Watched Mortal Kombat. It's better than the first two, right?
I already know we're going to disagree.
So already it's not better than the first two, folks. No, I think it was pretty. It was much better than the first two. I can't watch the first two. I tried to watch. I think I watched like the first one when it came out on VHS, and I was just like, "This is fucking awful. Like, I can't. This is so boring. This is not what I thought Mortal Kombat would be. It was boring as fuck. And it's PG-13." So that's a problem. I don't remember the second one was. I never saw the second one. I don't know what rating that was. Apparently, that was the worst one. So out of the two,
like even okay, I'm
Mortal
someone
Kombat
who preferred the first movie. Even I can't defend the second movie. This new movie, no matter how bad I think it is, it's still better than that second movie. That second movie was an abomination.
So you've watched the whole trilogy then of Mortal Kombat?
All three movies, yeah.
Okay. Like,
and for me, it's the first one, the new one, and number 2, Annihilation. That one was that. There's no redeeming that one.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, so like I like the action scenes are fun. I did think they kind of rushed like the last like action scenes though. Like I thought those were just kind of like.
Well, my thing was okay. So the story of Mortal Kombat before the first tournament. That's fine, but at the same time, it's like okay, you killed Goro already, so you're not gonna do the first tournament, whatever, and like. Okay, but you've done so much already. It's like, well, you've left very little for an actual first Mortal Kombat story where they're in Outworld and they're doing the tournament. And it's like, all right, you did a lot of fighting already. You kind of whooped most of Shang Tsung's guys. It's like, I don't know where you go with the. I mean, there's obviously it's Mortal Kombat. There's a million characters, so you can always just bust out a bunch of other ones. You killed Sub-Zero at the end of the movies. By the way, spoilers. Are we
no, that's the thing. They didn't really kill him though. Like that's what you didn't get at the very end. I don't think you got it, but basically, super evil guy that's a soul sucker, which I totally didn't even remember from the video game. I think it's because he normally has a mask on in the video game, like at least the first few games. But that the head bad guy. What?
Shang Tsung?
Shang Tsung. See, there you go. We can't remember the name of the actor that portrayed Dr. Octopus, but you remember that, so that's good. Shang Tsung.
He's kind of a big deal. He is the main in the first. Yes,
I never played as him. I was never into his character. So
okay, but still, he was the boss of the first game. He's kind of a big deal.
Shang Tsung. So M. Bison in Mortal Kombat. Yeah, Shang Tsung. Was like I will bring in new fighters and also I can resurrect old ones, and then they showed Sub-Zero's body and Goro's that were like totally out and dead, and they like disappeared to who knows what. So I think that they're gonna bring them back. I think the Goro thing as like kind of like how Sam Raimi treats Venom in like the third Spider-Man movie, like. Whoever directed it or wrote it, like, it was just like, this isn't a good character. Like, Marks will, like, totally get into it because he looks cool, but, like, Venom's never a character Raimi wanted to work with. He's very limited in some ways, and I think the same thing with Goro. It's just like, yeah, he's big and he's got an extra pair of arms, like, whatever. But I know it disappointed the hell out of a lot of fans, so, because he is, like, he's big and he's got 4 arms. That makes people happy to like to play as that character. I know. He was like pretty badass when I was a kid. I don't know. But there's not much more to him, I think, than that.
There's not a lot to most of these characters, if we're being honest.
Well, Jax has like metal arms, and Sonya Blade's a woman. I mean, no, you're right. These are pretty.
these are caricatures. So the idea of all this character development. Although I will say this, we did get a lot of character development in Kano. Kano was a lot of fun. Kano was a 3-dimensional character.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't remember. You played the game, and there's not like a lot of mythology there other than like playing the game, fighting people. But like, I didn't know Kano had that much personality. And I've seen, I'm sure you've seen these memes too, where it's like Kano carried the whole fucking movie on his shoulders or whatever. It's like, yeah, he pretty much did. And then they killed him they turned him like really like unconvincingly like halfway through, and then they just killed him I think he got killed in the end, right? Like
yeah, I got the impression from watching that movie that role was originally supposed to be Johnny Cage, because the way it was written, he is sort of a reluctant hero, and it's like, okay, I could see how you could do something like that with Johnny Cage, but then because they picked Kano and because he's ultimately a bad guy, they're like, well, he's just going to be a bad guy because that's what he is in the game, even though the continuity that the movie sort of set up was he's kind of having a change of heart. He sees that these good guys are not all dorks. Maybe there's something to this oh, we need to stop this guy, and then all of a sudden, oh, you should be evil. Okay, I think I will. It's like, okay.
Another rumor I heard. First of all, they definitely by the end of it set it up where Johnny Cage is going to come in, and be the big.
Yeah, they show the poster and they allude to Johnny Cage.
And they didn't show his face, so we don't know what it's going to be. And The Miz is trying to become like Johnny Cage. He's like, make it me, folks. He's like drumming up interest on the internet.
Might as well. I mean,
what else is he?
If he wants it, you're guaranteed a bunch of WWE fans will watch it. And have him as Johnny Cage, and he's not really. I mean, Johnny Cage is supposed to be a sort of like a caricature of like Jean-Claude Van Damme, which I'm of the opinion. If it was me casting, that's who I'd cast as Johnny Cage, but. Maybe his English isn't as great, so maybe someone like The Miz would probably be a way to go. But, he's not that far a stretch for the character.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. He's really over the top.
Yeah.
I think he won't do it, and this is probably why The Miz will get the job, honestly. But I think that the guy that they should get is John Cena. But it's like he's not going to go into like an R-rated movie like that where it's just like he's going to be. It's like kind of beneath him at this point, to be honest.
Isn't Suicide Squad rated R?
Right. Yeah, but Suicide Squad's like bigger movie, bigger like studio, like bigger.
Well, I imagine when we get a sequel to this, it's probably going to be in theaters because it's like, okay, this was supposed to be in theaters, but because of COVID, it's got released directly to HBO Max. And maybe that may have affected the budget, but this originally was supposed to be a wide release. And I think it's simultaneously in both. You could watch it on HBO Max and the theaters right now. I'm not 100% sure on that.
Yes.
I think that's what they're doing.
I think he made like 20 mil this weekend or something.
Yeah,
so.
Okay.
So, the theaters are somewhat alive. Like, they're making some money. Not what they normally would, obviously.
And maybe that's part of my knock on the film was it did seem kind of low rent. It's like, okay, you have the big confrontation between Sonya and Kano, and they're fighting in Sonya's bathroom. It's like you have the big confrontation between Cole Young, which, by the way, great new character, Mortal Kombat, Cole Young. I'm looking forward to all the Cole Young merchandise and Cole Young being introduced in the video games. But no, you have Cole Young fighting Goro in a shed. It's like, come on.
I just thought he was like one of the later characters because I got out of Mortal Kombat after 3 hit.
No, he's a new original character that they what they wanted to do was okay. The people who don't know anything about Mortal Kombat, he'll sort of be their their jumping on point. He'll be their avatar. It's like we don't know anything about Mortal Kombat. We're introducing this Cole Young guy who doesn't know anything, and he's going to be our introduction to the series. If you're getting someone who doesn't know anything about the games,
right, yeah. Also, he's related to Scorpion, right? So that helps too. Like there is some reasoning behind like why he matters, with the original core memorable characters. But yeah, I thought it was a good fun. I thought it was a good time. It was better than I expected to be. But I think it ranks at about like 50% on Rotten Tomatoes right now, and I think that's about right.
I was about to say, I hated the movie. There were times where it was kind of like pulling for teeth, but I'm like, 50% a little harsh.
Well, I'm gonna double check that because I might be wrong. Now 56%. So
yeah, that's a little hard. I would say
that's what I like about Rotten Tomatoes. Is it's like it's hard to get like an 80 or 90. It really is, unless if you're like a Marvel movie, it's just tough going, so
I feel
for a movie that like 5 people have seen and they all like gave you 100%, then you might have a really good ranking. But otherwise, it's very difficult to get. Whereas you go to IMDb, well, actually IMDb gave it a 6.3 out of 10, so that's pretty.
That to me, that I think is more fair. It's like.
63 versus 56.
Was it good? No, but was it like awful to where it's an abomination? I never want to see it again. No, it wasn't that bad. No.
Yeah. Did you, as somebody that knows a little bit more about Mortal Kombat, is there any missed opportunities that you think they should have implemented into the story? And I'm gonna put you on the spot with that because I'm gonna step out for just a sec to charge up my computer again. Got to get my wire. Sorry about that.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'll be out like 90 seconds. Just talk about that.
That's fine. It's just the implementation of the Cole Young character. I mean, we've already had people just already rip into it. It's like you kind of always knew they were going to do something like this because they needed an avatar. Because if they're going to have a big, wide release, they got to have someone there, someone who doesn't know anything about Mortal Kombat can just walk in and be like, oh, who's this character? Oh, he doesn't know what this tournament is either. Okay, we're in the same boat, and we can be introduced to all the elements at the same time. I thought the powers thing was a little cheesy. I mean, obviously they do it in the game, but it just the fact that they called so much attention to it made it seem kind of hokey. Like, oh, let's draw attention. I mean, in the game they just have powers and you just roll with it. And I think one of the later movies they have powers and you just roll with it. But the fact that they called so much attention to it, it's like, well, this is kind of weird. I don't know if I like this. And then Cole Young's power, it wasn't the best either. I keep calling it his sweater powers because that's what it was. Because he had the little yarn bracelet thing and he made a vest out of it. And I'm like, and the way they did the CG reveal was like the threads like went up his body, and I'm like, that looks like a sweater.
He knows how to accessorize, Like, it's gonna be.
And then they give him the little Billy. I mean, obviously they give him the blades, and they want to show that he's a force to be reckoned with because he kills Goro in cold blood. So it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this character cool because you kind of know he's got a. I mean, all these other characters are sort of pre-established and they're sort of time-tested. It's like, okay, these characters are good, and they've been around for decades now. And even if you've never heard of Mortal Kombat, they're kind of cool. Like they've, if they weren't that cool, eventually I imagine they'd be killed off like some of the other characters. But the fact that they've stuck around means they have some stay power. Whereas Cole Young, we don't know. He might suck. He might be good. If they do another movie, they may kill him off right away from the reception of him. This movie was a success, but I don't know how well people responded to Cole Young. I think even the people that liked it were like, he's kind of a weenie. It's kind of lame.
Yeah. Yeah, he's, the guy.
They did so much with Liu Kang. Liu Kang's supposed to be like the main character. It's like, okay, he was cool. He's the character I want to be the avatar. I want him to be, the one that we're following. It's like Cole Young,
I agree with that, actually. Liu Kang was pretty cool, I always liked playing as him, too. So
yeah.
With the little legs thing, I'm into that.
But not a big fan of Cole Young's sweater powers.
Yeah, neither. Yeah, me neither.
I thought he was going to be another Scorpion because I'm like, oh, that would have been cool. That would have made sense.
Right.
I mean, they wanted to do the undead Scorpion thing, which they've done in the games. But I thought, oh, he's going to be another Scorpion because, like mentioned earlier, where they killed off Sub-Zero, there's the Lin Kuei, there's a million Sub-Zeros. Or there's more than one. So I'm like, okay, for the next movie, they'll just use the next one. They'll use the next,
Maybe. Yeah, they might do that. Yeah, for sure. I think there will be a next one, but we'll see. Yeah. When they do things like this, it's like they always set it up where there's going to be another one, but that's in hopes that they make enough money. So, they always seem to do that now. So
the general consensus is you've seen reviews all over the place. Some people loved it, some people hated it, some people thought it was just okay. But the general consensus with everyone is this movie was a success.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Yeah. Like that's good to hear, like why not? I mean,
hopefully, when the pandemic's over and they have bigger budgets and they can expect a bigger return on their investment, we'll get a bigger story, we'll get an actual full tournament, and we'll get like a real Mortal Kombat 1 story. So,
and not to be that guy, but I will say it's I'm not a bad guy, but sometimes people make an issue of this one way or the other, but I thought it was a really diverse cast, and it should be because like that resembles what Mortal Kombat is.
Yeah, and this is one of those things to where it's like, okay, yeah, it's one of these things where it's like you have all these characters of multiple walks and multiple races, and it's very representative of society. So it's like just sometimes it's like, okay, we got to put Cole Young in there, we got to have Melina be African American. It's like, you already have a great diverse cast. You don't need to go, whatever. I don't want to make a big fuss about it because that's not the point of this show.
Right. And I think that's, the best way to carry it off. I mean, I don't know, as an Uncanny X-Men fan, like when they reintroduced an entirely new team from all the different countries in the 70s, I was like, that's great that they're doing that. I don't know. Like, and Mortal Kombat's like that. And also, Street Fighter's like that. And now that we have a Mortal Kombat movie, there can't be, it can't be too long till we see another Street Fighter movie. Which I thought, well, I definitely preferred the Mortal Kombat games as a kid. Like the Street Fighter movie is like slightly better than the Mortal Kombat movie, in my opinion.
See, that's where you're wrong. I think the first Mortal Kombat movie is a great movie. In fact, I dare say the first Mortal Kombat movie is probably, maybe not for sure, but one of the best video game movies.
The what? Okay.
Well, obviously that's a low bar. I mean,
it is a very low bar. Yeah, I think Sonic might be at the top of that bar. So it's just a very low bar.
Yeah, it's like you have Super Mario Brothers. That movie was, awful. Double Dragon was awful. So it's like, okay, Mortal Kombat. It for the most part stuck to the source material of the first game, and I thought, all things considered, it was a okay movie.
Well, I'm looking things up to see who wins the ultimate contest on Rotten Tomatoes. Now, Street Fighter has 13%, so it doesn't look very good for me at this point. But let's see about Mortal Kombat.
I think Mortal Kombat did better on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, I would imagine it's a pretty low bar, right? Like you said, low bar. 44%, so not as good as this movie, but yeah, definitely way better than the original Street Fighter movie. So
although I will say Street Fighter has its charm. I mean, it's really bad, but there are some sequences that are really good, really entertaining. And I dare say that one monologue from Bison was legendary. You even heard nerds nowadays they'll refer to Mr. M. Bison as Mr. Tuesday and stuff like that.
Tuesday, yeah. Oh yeah. So you didn't watch Impact, right? Rebellion.
No, I was like, it's Impact. The thing is, they revealed their hand when they said it was title for title. If they would have kept it as Impact title, it's like, okay, you could have gone either way. You could have had, Kenny Omega slipping on a banana peel and Rich Swann retain. But the second you announce it's title for title, you're kind of telling everybody Kenny Omega's winning the Impact.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Sure. But I mean, Swann's awesome, but yeah, there's no way.
But maybe that was their point. They're like, well, if Rich Swann retains, it's like people aren't really going to watch that. Like, we need to tell folks Kenny Omega's winning, so they'll watch the show and pay for the pay-per-view.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I think it would have been just fine if they didn't do that. I think you're right, actually. I mean, you're giving both sides of it, but no, I think you're right. I think they should have just made it like for the Impact title. Especially since like the Good Brothers lost to Finjuice like right before that match, which I did not expect. I actually thought they were going to take the tag titles from Finjuice and then set up like Kenny. But when they lost, at that point, if they would have said like it was just for the one title, then I would have been like, Swann's got a really good chance of winning here, and it would have been more surprising, obviously more dramatic.
You could have booked a finish that protects Kenny Omega, where the Good Brothers try to help him out, and they try to help him out, but it backfires, and Rich Swann rolls him up to get the banana peel ending 1, 2, 3. Rich Swann walks off the Impact champion.
Yeah, exactly, and I totally have seen that happening. So, but now he's got all 3 belts. He's got the AAA, he's got the AEW, he's got the Impact. If PWG has a show, maybe we'll take that title too.
That one I'm not sure. You know who really what Belly should win next? And I don't know. I'm curious what you'll say. The Ring of Honor Championship.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't like Rush very much. Actually, I do watch Ring of Honor regularly. I get why they put Rush. I mean, Rush is a big star, in Mexico, and he's physically like somewhat imposing for like smaller wrestlers that wrestle in Ring of Honor. He's good at getting heat. I guess I just mentioned all the reasons why he's champion, but I just generally, I'm like a traditionalist with Ring of Honor. If like you're not the best wrestler in the company, maybe you shouldn't have the title. But I mean, I would like to see. Obviously, in that case, the best wrestler to me in that company right now is Jonathan Gresham. And yeah, I like to see him. He's with the Peter title. So yeah, I'll take Kenny Omega's Ring of Honor World Champion, no problem. So that's
fair. The thing is, I mean, Ring of Honor took all the time off. They're one of the few promotions that paid people while they weren't working.
Yeah.
But with that said, with AEW around, and it's like Ring of Honor is. Let's put it this way: I'm sure AAA and Impact put their belts on Kenny Omega as sort of a way to add some legitimacy for their titles, because it's like,
Right.
okay, these are sort of lesser organizations, and if we put it on Kenny Omega, people will be more inclined to watch our shows. And I feel like if they do that with Ring of Honor too, people will be more inclined to watch Ring of Honor, because it's like, okay, for sure we'll probably get a Kenny Omega match. So it's like, okay, I should watch Ring of Honor again.
Well, both Ring of Honor and Impact, as somebody who's watched Impact casually, and somebody who's like watched Ring of Honor since the reboot, well, not reboot, but basically since they came back to television, with new matches, I think they both have like improved greatly. You know, like Impact is really just been like this barely alive thing, where in the last year it's just grown a lot more, like basically from the throes of death, and now they're just like, you know, they're still like, they're very much I in my book, and people can argue with me on this one, Ring of Honor is still the bigger company than Impact right now, because it just has more consistency over the past 5 years, whereas Impact has just been like, and then the last year they've been like, oh, you know, they've gone up a little bit, and it's nice to see that. I don't know what as far as ratings wise how that works. I know one thing for sure. Back before the pandemic, when they were both running shows, Ring of Honor could get a lot more paying fans than Impact ever could. So like, the last few years. So that's where I measure it. Also, I'm a little biased towards Ring of Honor, but I think that's obvious.
Yeah, it would be in Ring of Honor's benefit to put their title on Kenny Omega. The only one that
for sure. Yeah.
The only one who I question, I'm like, because the relationship's still kind of touch and go, even though they've said, you know, they're cool with working each other, but it's like, well, how far are you willing to push that? I don't know if New Japan's going to be willing to put the belt on Kenny Omega just yet.
They wouldn't put that belt on Kenny Omega. I don't see it happening. I think they could put the New Japan US title, you know, on him, and they'd be like, hey, they have the US title. There's no way they're going to give him the world title again as a member of AEW. Like, I just don't see it.
Yeah, no, you're probably right. Yeah.
You know, I don't even think that they have I don't think they have the best working relationship with AEW. I know they did the Moxley Kenta match, but also Mox he was already in the company. He's supports both companies.
Well, they just had Nagata show up on AEW TV this week.
Who? What?
Nagata.
Oh, that's cool.
He's feuding with Mox in New Japan because he works the two promotions, and they've had Yuji Nagata show up on AEW TV this week. So they're obviously working together. The problem is just it's two things. The first thing is obviously the pandemic kind of limits everyone's travel. Kenta was perfect because, you know, he was signed with WWE. He lives in Florida. He's feuding with Jon Moxley. AEW during the pandemic were, you know, predominantly just in Jacksonville. So it's one of those things where it's just all the stars aligned perfectly. Whereas this Nagata thing is like, okay, you clearly flew the guy out there. So you're investing.
They're doing much with New Japan.
That's the thing too. It's like, well, on the flip side,
but he's a legend.
He's a legend, but he's sort of on his way out. But yeah, I see what you're saying. It's for the U.S. title, so it's like, okay, so it's still a touch and go relationship, which is why I'm thinking they may not put the title on Kenny.
And from what I understand, and this again is just rumor and hearsay, like, I think that while New Japan is willing to obviously work with AEW on some level, like, I understand they are not happy with Kenny Omega in the fact that he left. So, like, I feel like they will just kind of stay away from working with him directly and work with other facets of the company, because maybe they don't really have a grudge against AEW. They more have a grudge against Kenny Omega. You know, made him the top star, and then he left. So,
like I said, I think that's trivial and petty, but that's the way they do business. So
that is the way they do business. I mean, it's kind of McManus as well, you know. So, and I think there's some people out there that are like, oh, then we'll work with WWE. They're not going to work with WWE. So, that's not going to happen. So, but yeah, I think we kind of covered everything. Anything else that we should cover?
No, I think
I will say watch the Impact Rebellion if you get the chance. It was actually pretty good. It was the best paper they've had in many years. So,
and how would you rate the?
It was like a 7.
How would you? The pay-per-view or the Kenny Omega Rich Swann match?
I'm sorry. Oh, the pay-per-view or the match. So yeah, like 7.4 for the pay-per-view, I guess, out of 10. The best matches on the show is the opener X Division match, Charles Alexander, Ace Austin, and TJP. That was like a really hot match, and then the closing with Kenny Omega, which actually Kenny Omega was strong, being the best match on the show. Maybe I would give that like an 8.4, out of 10. That's how I like to rank things. I don't like to do stars. So, but that was like a really good quality match, and I mean the whole show really flowed really well, like really quickly. It wasn't like anything on the level of a AEW pay-per-view, but it was way better than you would ever expect Impact to do. I mean, if you've really been paying attention, and I will say, in my eyes, it was better than WrestleMania this year. Ooh. So I did not like night one. That was boring as fuck for me. Outside of this is our Rollins match, but so yeah, I would recommend it. It's worth people's time. But again, it's Impact, so you can kind of go at your own pace, folks, because it's not exactly earth-shattering stuff happening. It's like a fun. I would still look at it as like this is like a fun indie that's really trying to grow more. Like they basically were this huge company in a sense, and then they almost completely died, and now they're just like making little steps every single show, every single pay-per-view, whatever, little steps to get up to like being relevant again. It's something that people want to watch, and that doesn't happen overnight. In a year or two from now, from what I saw on that show, a year or two from now, they not size-wise, but they could definitely like build on that quality level and be like a strong number 3, between AEW and WWE. So if they kept going in that direction over the couple of years, because they've grown a lot in the past 12 months, so they were really low. Good on them for making the AEW relationship. And getting all that new talent, and also working with New Japan, they're doing pretty well for themselves as far as politics go in wrestling as well. So so good show, and So anything else that we should cover?
No, like you mentioned earlier, we're going to be taking a little time off for finals. When that's over, I imagine we'll probably go right back to where we left off. I mean. It's next week, so I don't know if we're going to remember by the time we come back, but that AEW Blood and Guts show is coming out.
Yep, that looks good.
And then I imagine we'll be back before then. But low-key, I think that's, June 11th?
Well, I'm looking at that now, so I'm like, June 11th. Okay, low-key, sure.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to take that long a time off. I think it's just – I mean, how many more weeks do you have left to go? I have 3, so –
3.5, I guess. Like literally, the last thing I have to do is March 23rd. So finals is like 3 weeks from today, basically. But I'd be like in the thick of it. So I don't know. But, yeah, it's for those that procrastinate like me. I always tell myself I'm never going to put myself in this position again. And then I always.
And then you do it again. Well, this week's show was really bad for both of us because originally we were going to do it Monday, but I was like. I haven't heard from Cray, and I'm getting kind of lazy and comfortable. And then he sends me a message, I think maybe 10 minutes before we're supposed to do the show. It's like, oh, I didn't know if we were going to do it already and already got lazy. Let's do it on Tuesday. And then Crane's like, okay. And then Crane got lazy. So it's one of those things where, we're busy, and then we're going to school. And then it's like, we have time to watch all this stuff. And then, in between all that stuff, it's like, okay, let's try to do an hour pod and call an episode.
Plus, it's like having the motivation to like go out there and do it too, right? Like
exactly.
So, but yeah, or the inspiration at least. But yeah, like dragged our feet a little bit on that, and we took a week off before last week. So basically, it's just better to be like, okay, May 24th, we'll be back because at that point, I got nothing going on in my life, folks.
I'm here. Sounds good.
So until then, have a good couple weeks, and we'll see you on the 24th of May.
Bye bye.